Hey there, this is Justin back with an engineer's perspective. Today we'll be doing some sharpening on the KME. I'll be sharpening this Benchmade Steep Country. This is the updated version in S30V. I really like what this knife has going on. It's light, the sheath is light, it's a nice robust material. It's thinner stock than their old version of this, and the reason I actually got it and was interested is because the grinds that they're doing on these are so much better. It's pretty much 15 thousandths behind the edge from here up to somewhere in the belly. So 15 thousandths behind the edge is really good for a production knife, especially a Benchmade. It's about 20 thousandths up here at the tip. I did really quick run it over my work sharp blade grinding attachment at 17 degrees per side because I didn't want to do too much work on this for this video, so I wanted to reprofile on the work sharp and then do it on this, finish it up. But it was about 17 degrees per side, so it's right where I was going anyways. So I'm going to show you guys how to get your KME set up here and how to do the sharpening on it. So I stick it in there first, and then first thing I do is I just try to center it, and I do something a little goofy. Ideally you could take like a ruler and say I've got 1 inch on that side and 1 inch on that side or whatever, but I actually just kind of take my finger, take up some of that slack there, and I see how much is poking out. And I do the other side and I see how much of the heel is poking out, which in this case is a tiny amount. So I gotta come way over. On a knife like this that has so much belly, this is less than the previous model too, which I also prefer. You might want to prefer the belly side just a little bit, especially knowing that it's thick behind the edge so that this doesn't get too big on this side. So I'm just eyeing it up to see if it's about even. Just gonna give it one little scooch. Looks to be about even. So the next step is I don't put the rod in until I do this, so I'm gonna lay it from tip to heel. Just gonna do that. So then do you see if I do that? Probably not. Let me lift this up here. Do you see how this is not parallel with the jaws? See that? It's not quite parallel. So I'm actually going to adjust the knife so that when I do that, this rod is parallel with the clamp. You want that to be, that's how you just get, it's not perfect. Some people get all bent out of shape because the angle here is a little bit than here, a little bit different than here. And to those people, I say, who cares? It doesn't matter what the angle is of your knife. If it works, it works, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. If the second you touch something, it rolls or it chips, then you know you got to make an adjustment, but it literally doesn't matter. So it's going to vary if you have a fixed angle system. That's just the nature of the beast. So some people just have to get over that. If you want it to be perfect, you're just going to have to learn to hand sharpen. Yeah. So that looks pretty good before we start hogging away. Double check. Then something I like to do is look right down the middle, right down this, and make sure that the blade isn't tipped one way, because it doesn't typically happen. This one's straight, but sometimes if you accidentally pinch it between the metal back here instead of the rubber jaws that you can see there, it'll do it. So if you don't notice that, that'll tip you off, but it's just good to check. And I just hold there, and I try to screw down pretty tight. It's good practice to put a little bit of oil on these little detents in here. Can you see that little detent ball right there? I just put a little bit, just 1 drop of oil. This oil here is the oil used for Arkansas stones. It's some Dan's honing oil. It's this stuff. That's just used for Arkansas stones. I only have one Arkansas stone and I don't really like it. It's actually the translucent Arkansas. Ooh. If you like the translucent Arkansas, this is the best way to get one because they're very rare and expensive, so it's hard to get a big one. And a small one like that's not very usable unless you've got something like this. So I'm gonna stick it in the clamp now. And I've got this little retaining collar I bought that's an add-on. It's just that I can let it hang there. It's handy. I just like it. It's absolutely not necessary. So now I'm just checking the swing of this to make sure that the back of my stone will actually be on the edge the whole way. So I'm just going to tighten it down. So now that's right. Next, I'm going to take this Sharpie. I'm going to Sharpie the edge in. And I just realized I should have grabbed my angle cube before this video, but it's too late now. It's okay, we'll do this the old-fashioned way. Excuse me. Because a Sharpie is the best way. Okay. Okay, so now we need to match the angle of this guy up to this. So let's say these numbers on here are like super approximate, like plus or minus 3 degrees. So I just don't even use them. But so to find this angle, so if you, let's say you wanted this thing to be at 15 degrees, you had no idea what it's at, you would put your stone in, you'd rest it like so, and then you would take your phone, is what I usually use, but I do have an angle cube, and you would just rest it on this flat, and you would zero it to your wooden base. And then some people don't like that there's a wiggle between this metal rod and where it inserts. In terms of the sharpening, that doesn't matter because this unit is stable. But in terms of if it's 0 here and it's here, it adds like 3/10 of a degree maybe, but you can just kind of hold this flat down and get that out. But anyways, you check the angle right here and it'll tell you, and you could put it to 15 degrees or 20 or whatever. But in this case, I'm just trying to match the geometry that's on here. I'm just gonna give it a couple scratches. Let's see if the camera will pick it up. So I'm hitting the edge okay, but it's more towards this part of the blade versus towards the edge. So I need that node to come up a teeny bit higher to actually match that 17-degree angle. So it's still a little too low. Let me come up a little more. Keep coming. Okay, so that's looks to be maybe too high. No, it's about right. So like I was saying, a fixed angle system like this isn't going to be perfect. So in the middle is where it's going to hit the lowest, and then, or the highest, and it's going to get lower as you go out. So here I'm hitting the edge. Here I'm hitting this side of it. And that's totally okay, because once you sharpen it out, it'll all look just fine. It can get goofy on really big blades, but this isn't that. So before we get going, it's always good to check the other side. Like 90% of the time, it seems like these are really asymmetrically ground. So like one side will be 17, the other side will be like 19. So I like to check the other side first. So I'm doing it, and now the whole thing is towards the back. So now I have to ask myself a question. Do I want to end up reprofiling this side? And the answer is pretty much yes for me. So this might be a long one. We're already at 10 minutes. So what we just saw is that both sides don't actually match each other. But I don't want to go too much lower than 17. because this will be doing bones, and it's, you know, steel that's in the 58 to 60 Rockwell area, and 58 below 16 or so, 17, 16, it seems like it doesn't do so well against bones. This is my last chance to back out. I'm gonna go for it. I'm just gonna sharpen until I get a burr. And instead of going straight back and forth, I like to do a little sweeping just to kind of follow that curve. And one thing I like about S30V is it performs really well, but it's really easy to move with these diamond stones. So I just went to the 140 grit, which is a stone I've gotten there. And I do also have the 100 grit and 50 grit for major reprofiling jobs. But like I said, S30V, I'm not doing, so it can grind it easy. And this isn't a major reprofile. I'm not applying very much pressure here, about just the weight of my hand. And I'm trying to do the whole blade pretty evenly. Try not to focus too long in one spot, because I can get such nice strokes out here versus back in the heel, it's very small strokes. I'll pause at the heel a little bit to try to even it out. So just out of curiosity, it doesn't feel like we've raised a burr anywhere, but a lot of the Sharpie is gone. This knife in particular came with a micro bevel on it from the factory, so I'm removing that right now, so it takes a little bit longer than normal. And then another note is, if you wanted to, you could tape up this back area. Let's see what I got in the pocket today, so that you don't scratch it, because you'll get on this rounded transition, it's pretty easy to get a little like swoop here that you've ground down. Doesn't bother me any, so I just go for it. Got a Maximate Spyderco Manix 2 lightweight here that had been patinaed, and then I've since thinned out that edge. It's more like convex than thinned, really, so it just slices a little bit better. But great action on that guy. And the guy I bought it from somehow got a deep carry pocket clip on there. So this is the only Manix 2 lightweight I've seen with one of those guys. Not gonna, if I sell it, I'd buy another Manix 2 lightweight, take the clip off and keep this one. But it's been customized a little too much, I think, for resale. And so the best tip I can give about sharpening the tip of the knife, well, there's a few, but the number one is, imagine the tip like this. Right at the very tip, there's a single molecule of steel, one single one right there. You want to leave that one on. So try to imagine you're sharpening right up to that last molecule. And the best way to do that is to not let this stone roll over it. So only cover it up maybe like a quarter of the stone is off. And dude, don't think of it as being round. Think of this last little bit of blade as almost straight. It'll save you a lot of rounded tips that way. Another big thing I'll say on the KME is this joint here. Make sure it's always tightened down. So the way I recommend do it is this nut they've got, screw it all the way back as far as it goes on the threads, and then screw your holder all the way to the back like that. And that way it doesn't come loose, because if it does come loose, then you'll get an angle right here. So as you're going, it'll kind of like bend here and it'll change your angle. So you want to make sure this is always tight. And the first sharpening on a fixed angled system on a knife, the first time they meet each other, usually takes the longest. So this probably wasn't the best I wanted to do this video on, but I wanted to sharpen it on the KME because it was still wearing that factory edge. And I know how goofed up they come, so I like to even them out either on a work sharp or the KME before I hand sharpen them, just because I'm just lazy, too lazy to pay attention to it when I'm hand sharpening. I just like to follow or set my own, but to putz around with an uneven one is just kind of a pain in the butt. I think we're getting a burr. I don't know if it's fully developed, but we're going to switch to the other side and we'll come back. Oh, yeah. Yeah, this tip was not done very well, I can tell. Got a lot of work to do. Instead of being, the rest of it was at 17 or so, this tip is probably at 20. So I'm just kind of focusing on it a little bit. I'm sure I've already, oh, no I haven't. Ooh, definitely have up there. I've not raised a burr back there. You know, and some people will sit and sharpen their KME like this, and I think that's just nuts. You gotta be crazy to do that. It's so like uncomfortable. Because I mean, the KME comes with this like pistol grip, so and it doesn't come with a base. It's meant to be sharpened like this. Hold everything in your hand. This is my preferred way. Normally I just hold it in my hand. It's by far my preferred method. Sometimes I like to rest my elbow, but I try not to have too much stress in this off arm, otherwise it just gets tired. So try not to keep it tense, slight pressure, and just work it. It's about passes, not about pressure. So still need a burr back here and still need to fix that tip. Just kind of focusing on this back part because he already has a burr. Let's see. Oh yeah, the burr's coming along. And I'll show you how I can tell that this tip is messed up here. You almost can't see it actually. I don't know if it'll come through on camera. Because I've got just the slightest amount of Sharpie that's right near the tip. It's kind of, the Sharpie would be gone already if it matched everything, but I can see it's kind of hiding away from me down there. So I gotta just keep working that tip, trying not to round it over. Just kind of changing my angle of the dangle here. My arm's getting tired. But it can take a long time to get that micro bevel out, which is why this is taking so long back here. And that's why I've got that 100 grit and 50 grit stone. Because this is when I'm matching the angle on a new knife. Imagine if you're reprofiling. It's a major time commitment to do something like that. That tip really came along nice. Just gonna do a little bit more work back here. Another thing about taping off the back, see how I'm getting metal dust on that handle? It's kind of sticking. I don't really care, but you may. So keep that in mind, especially with rubber handles or light G10. If you have, you know, light green or white or orange, it may be an issue. And I've had this KME for, that's a good question. 1, 2, 3 or 4 years. I haven't sharpened much on it all of 2020 because that's why I transitioned to hand sharpening. But I've reprofiled and sharpened a lot on this. I don't even know. I probably sharpened the same, 20 knives over and over again, mostly on it. But I've got a lot of sharpenings and reprofiles on this guy. And when you focus on one little area, you're gonna want to blend that back in with the rest because it's gonna look a little different. So we'll do that in a second here. Once I fully form this burr, I think I'm just right there. So see how I'm focus, and I kind of blend it back a little bit. And this is why that stop collar is nice. You do not want to shortchange yourself on this one. You're not going to get the results you're looking for if you don't fully develop that burr. So do not shortchange yourself on your coarsest stone, people. This is when you make it or break it. And normally I would advise to try to make as small of a burr as possible on your first stone, because the bigger burr you make, the bigger the burr is that you got to remove. But on the KME, it's so much easier to reduce that burr. It's kind of a non-issue. And it's really something you worry about on the rest of the stones. So on the stones after this, we'll be much more concerned about making sure that we leave a small burr. And it's just like, when in doubt, do more. That's the gospel of forming a burr. Man, it's frustrating. Oh, 25 minutes in. Holy smokes. I'm just gonna do this just so I can see if I can see that micro bevel. I'm working down to, not really. So there is a phenomenon. I'm evening this out now. I'm blending it all back together. that can happen with the KME. And I believe it's due to the size of the abrasives, where the burr, when you're doing 140 grit diamond, is the burr can get a little bit weird on the other side. Like it all, woo, you heard that burr. Is it almost, that hurts. So you can hear how big that burr was. It almost like rips the burr off the other side when they're that big, and it can make it really difficult sometimes to tell if you've fully formed it. But now I'm just coming back to this side to make sure I fully formed it over here. Because if you remember when I switched, it was on my agenda to come back to. Definitely fully formed. And we're going to try to swap it, blending it all together. Yep, we're good. All right. So that was 140 grit. That first sharpening takes a long time because there's unevenness. There's recurves a lot of times in the back of factory sharpened knives. And it's a lot of work to get them to where they ought to be, where they're symmetrical and there's free of mistakes. Okay, so now I'm going to Sharpie it again. And I find this is most critical for this jump from the 140 to the 300. And then less critical for the next jump, and almost unnecessary for the one after, but honestly, it's a good practice to Sharpie every time. That's what I recommend doing. Okay, I don't remember which side I left the burr on. That one. So we're gonna do that side first. All right, so now the goal is edge refinement and burr minimization. All right, so we're gonna make sure that we flip the burr. We haven't. So once again, that's the size of this abrasive, like props it up. So you almost have to do a resharpening with the 300, and that's why this is such an important one to include that Sharpie on, in my opinion. Because this jump, you end up doing a decent amount of work with the 300. Not a lot, but it's more than just what I was saying, which is edge refinement and burr minimization. But we don't want to get, okay, I haven't quite got the tip there too crazy. We don't want to get too crazy with the 3. But the 600 and the 15, much easier, in my opinion, controlling the burr. I think it looks good. Burr formed. Yeah, like I was saying with those 140 grit particles, it's almost like they prop up the stone, so instead of being like at this angle, they're at like that angle or something like that. So actually sharpen a tiny bit lower on that 140 grit versus your other ones. Like, did I really fully form the burr on that spot? Just gonna spend a little bit of extra time back here. Using the same amount of pressure Always the same pressure. Especially for those of you with the Work Sharp angle guide system or whatever it is. It's like a KME from Work Sharp. Really watch your pressure, because those ones I hear tend to be a little bit flexible. Excuse me, which is fine. You just have to be consistent. And that was the 3, up to the 6. And we're gonna not do the Sharpie this time. We're just looking for burr flipping. You can hear it. And this just goes for a sharp knife, not for a polished edge. I don't do mirror polishes with this system, so you may want to spend longer on each grit to fully get out the scratches. I'm not sure how long you have to do it for. I normally get pretty shiny edges. Not as shiny as when I do freehand, it seems, but that just has to do with the abrasives. These are diamond, whereas freehanded will be different. Okay, that's the 600. So I'm gonna do some burr reducing on this one. So weight of the stone, I'm just gonna come into the edge so light, and I'm just trying to cut that burr off. And I'm kind of aligning the scratch pattern as well. You can choose how you want to do it. You could go like this, straight, so your scratch pattern is straight, and you should have been building up to this point in what you were doing. So same here, you could go more straight, but I know I'm kind of a puller when I cut, so I align my scratches pointing backwards a little bit, so it kind of digs in, and that you'll really notice the difference in your knife's performance if you tailor the direction of your scratch pattern. So I'm working from heel to tip. Doesn't really matter. So if you like the scratch pattern the other way, you'd probably want to go like that, but I don't. So reduce the burr down a little bit. We're gonna hop up to the 1500. The 600 is a great spot to stop and strop at. I'm not sure why I'm going up to the 1500. I'm going to be honest with you. So for me, I'm not looking for that full 1500 finish. So I'm just going to be doing these burr reducing strokes. Sorry, I wonder how much I've been out of frame. Just looking at my tip. Seems like it's fine. Just wondering if I was missing some burr reducing strokes on the tip. And this is a pretty easy point to accidentally roll over or around your tip, or tip that stone over, so I just caution you to not do that. Okay. Okie dokie. So she is sharp. So a tiny little burr on there. Let's try to do the 3-finger test. Definitely a burr on there. No two ways about it. I got some paper. So I'll just cut through that, but that's not sharp enough. So one option is you can use the KME strops. I've got several of them, but I think they're supposed to match the stone thickness, but I find that they tend to miss the edge and just hit the heel. They're a little bit thinner. So I don't actually really like to do that. So at this point, I will hand strop it. I've got the strop over here. Just gonna take this apart so we can see that 1500 grit edge. It should definitely shave hair. Oh yeah, that is hair popping sharp, but there's still a burr on it, and we don't like burrs. This is just from a work sharp angle assist or something, I don't remember, and this is just the strop top on it. I recently rubbed it down with Vaseline to give it some new life, so I don't know if it needs to be reloaded on there. This is a combination of green compound and 4 micron CBN. And I'm just stropping. I actually really like this as a strop. This material they use is fairly stiff, and I like stiff strops. I don't know how many that was, 6 or so. And when I get to the end, I'm just kind of, so I can check here, I'm just kind of pushing forward, letting it dig into the strop. That just lets me know I'm hitting that edge correctly. It's probably 6 or so. We'll do probably 3 or so. Then I'll finish it up here. Great. So 3-finger test. Very sharp, it's very aggressive. This thing is, it's more than just the bite you get from a well apexed edge. This S30V and this diamond progression here. It's, when you get those vanadium carbides like an S30V, you can really get an edge that just has got some teeth to it, you know? And that's one reason why I tend to actually prefer S30V to a steel like S35VN, because S35VN is a lot more of that refined feeling edge. Not that you can't achieve that with S30V if you work the stones right, but the way S30V just gets nasty aggressive. Oh gosh, that is just mind-blowing sharp right there. I doubt I'm gonna test it on the back of my head here. Oh yeah, it's grabbing hair. I doubt I have any of my wife's hair down here, so I don't think I can do a hair whittling test. This is my home office, and she works in the office, so what is this? This probably my son's hair, actually. We definitely let his hair grow longer than we ought to. It's very thin, though. I'm just gonna wipe this knife off of my jeans here. You can see that. I'm just kind of doing like a last little stropping. If I can't clean off any burr or dust. Okay. Oh, I don't think it's gonna do it. It's really hard to whittle his hair. It's so thin. No, it's not gonna go. Wasn't really going for hair whittling, but to be honest with you guys, if you do your job correctly, you should be able to, see if I can just snag it. Yeah, I got it cut so that it'll catch it, but it won't whittle it. But if you really do your work, you should be able to whittle a hair from off a 600 grit diamond stone straight to a strop. I've probably done it with every knife I own. Well, a DMT course, so not 600. So it's very possible. Done it with up to 10V. Never done it with Maximate before. But you can definitely do it. And that's when you know you're getting better at sharpening, is when you can, your last stone is low grit like that. And not even that low grit, 600. But you can whittle a hair. That's when you know you're really working with some good skills. So anyways, that's a very long video of sharpening a Benchmade Steep Country S30V on a KME. I hope you enjoyed. Have a great day. See you on the next one.